Good morning, campers. Welcome Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson Read-Along podcast. I am your host, Zach.
And I'm B.
And this week, we read the first chapter of The Last Olympian. We read Chapter 1, I Go Cruising with Explosives. And this chapter started with a bang and ended with a bang.
Yeah, it's pretty much a literal interpretation, this chapter. No doublespeak in the Riordan sort of...
Actually, no, that doesn't count because he goes cruising twice. The first time he goes in a car that's cruising, and then he goes to an actual cruise ship.
Oh, I get, but he goes cruising with explosives.
Well, cruising means different things.
No, but okay. Anyway, regardless, I don't think he means the doublespeak thing. It's not like when he says some sort of crazy, like, complicated chapter, but it means something else. We've experienced that before. There are literal explosives. There is a literal cruise ship. Let's get into it.
Yes, and I'm excited to talk about this chapter because The Last Olympian is one of my favorite dark books because this is where things get super serial, especially first chapter, crazy stuff happens. We kind of talked. You looked at me when you were reading the chapter because I'm still at B's house, and they looked at me for a long second like, oh, you're at that part. And it just went all downhill from there.
The weird thing is, well, we're probably going to get into this later. How much should I say about
it? Doesn't really... We're on chapter 1.
Okay, I guess. But as far as, like, how it ends, good old Beckendorf...
blows himself up.
Yeah, kills himself, which is... I'm getting deja vu a little bit, because we've had a sacrificial explosion in a boat before with Tyson, if you remember.
Yeah, we had.
So it's kind of a little bit redundant as far as... a way to kill off a character, quote unquote. I mean, I think actually Beckendorf did die in this scenario.
Well, see, the difference though is they set up that he with Tyson that he's impervious to fire. So
yeah, so there's a reason why he wouldn't have died and blah blah blah. I get that. I'm pretty sure that Beckendorf not so much, though he also works in the forges, but he doesn't have any sort of a impervious nature to fire. So there's
But
no
the good
reason...
thing about this though, P, is that hopefully Ethan Nakamura got incinerated too.
Yeah, hopefully that little sniveling piece of garbage. I have hated that character from the moment that they introduced him. I don't really like him. I don't really see the point. I guess I see the point in him. He's like a toady, because they needed like a sort of...
They needed a Wormtail.
Yeah, exactly, like a less important villain character, and I know that that's like the role that he plays, but I just, every time I see him in a chapter, I'm just sort of like rolling my eyes. I find him really irritating. His whole personality is that he's mad all the time. I don't know. I just like...
He's an angsty teen boy.
He's not even angsty. He's just like a jerk. And then even Percy says that Ethan has like repaid him by just wanting to kill him or whatever. Like he understands that it's kind of a really ridiculous stance to take, that Percy tried to help him when they first met, and then now he's like his enemy, basically. It's absurd.
Yes, and even when it comes to this chapter, it's actually kind of funny. This is the book I remember getting. I had waited like many, many months for this book. It's much like the end where I was so excited for this book. I remember rereading all of Percy Jackson, and this is the book that I actually stayed home and actually plowed through. And it's weird because like I'll get through all the Percy Jackson books, and this is the one that I actually have read the least. I've read Battle of the Labyrinth a lot more than The Last Olympian. So there are things that I remember about it because there's things that just really stand out. And then there's things about this that I totally forgot about, such as the beginning of this book opens up with Percy Jackson and Rachel Elizabeth Dare going on a date. There's no way
they go on a date. There's something really interesting about the way that this chapter starts, right? Because we're often used to a certain, I guess, formula when it comes to Percy Jackson books. Usually it starts in the beginning of a summer, usually, or sometimes like maybe at the end of a school year. There's like an in-between
moment where it's either right when schools had just began, or it's right as school's just about to end.
Yeah, but in this case, it's weird because where we left off was also the end of summer. And now it's already August when they start talking.
Well, there's a reason for that, because they've already set up that Percy's birthday is next week.
Percy's birthday, exactly. So that's really interesting to me, because I guess I always assumed that this book would give us a little bit more of the summer, and then we'd get all the lead up to him turning 16. But in this, he's turning 16 in a week, which I don't exactly know what the timetable of the book is, if like it only takes place within the frame of that week, or within maybe the frame of like the week leading up to his birthday and the week after or something along those lines.
Well, the best way to put it is that if his birthday is going to be in a week, and how every Percy Jackson book has been, is that the big event's going to happen at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th minute.
But also, I mean, there's been plenty of books that still span a big length of time. I mean, the last book, The Battle of the Labyrinth, sure, like the main quest isn't the main quest was like not too long, but it still was a couple weeks, and then it jumps way through all of the summer too. So it actually spans a lot of time. Well, this like totally just cuts right to August, which is kind of weird. I didn't really expect them to like immediately lead with like he's turning 16 in a week. Like that seems like a really interesting
There also
choice.
is a time skip with this, because if you were paying attention to the chapter, Percy's talking about how Paul is now his stepdad.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I felt for a second like I maybe accidentally skipped a chapter or something. I thought I was going crazy.
That's like the quickest wedding turnaround ever.
No, exactly. Like that's sort of like this weird. It you know, like when sometimes a major plot point happens in between seasons of a TV
and you
show.
forget.
Yeah, that's kind of what, or not even if you forget.
No, you just don't think that.
If the first episode of a TV show, like if like the new season, and they're like, and by the way, all this stuff happens. That's kind of what this feels like, where it's like, let me bring you up to speed. It's already August. I'm already turning 16 in a week. Also, my mom, that guy that she was dating, they're married now. I don't know when that happened. Sometime
they obviously went to Atlantic City.
Sometime in the intervening year, I guess.
Obviously it would have been cool if it was because Percy Jackson. They probably went on a boat. Poseidon, because he's technically a captain, wed them at sea. Oh man, that's some dumb fan fiction I just wrote.
I don't know if Poseidon would be that cool about it, honestly.
No, but I like that there's that weird time skip. But I think the most important thing is that with the opening of this chapter, it is almost like Harry Potter in the sense of how it's like he's gonna leave Privet Drive and how he's learning how to drive. That's like you're an adult at that point. The second you're learning how to drive and going on a date with a girl, even though it's obvious.
I think maybe there's always a time in like YA series like this where a young adult character, or even
becomes
like
a man,
character, becomes a teen character, exactly, or becomes like an older teen, where you really see a lot of like their maturity change all of a sudden. Like, oh, they're driving now. Oh, they're like more interested in dating. They're less like sort of mincing their words when it comes to whether they're interested, because there's been some romantic stuff before, but it's been much more like childlike, like, you know, oh, will they, won't they, you know, does she like me, like that kind of stuff. Well, it's more like overt. Like I was really surprised actually that, you know, when he's sitting in the car with Rachel, hold on, let me find what she says to him, because it's like
it's bonkers.
It's so like straightforward, and it really like shocked me that was there. Percy says, okay, I said, just a normal afternoon and two normal people. She nodded. And so, hypothetically, if these two people liked each other, what would it take to get the stupid guy to kiss the girl, huh? Like that seems like not a line of dialogue that would have been in the past few books.
Well, no, it reminds me a lot of that particular dialogue was I was thinking of the Little Mermaid song. Da-da-da-da-da, kiss the girl.
We were just listening to that in the car the other day.
Yeah, we were. It's funny because you have like a straightforwardness, because he even compares Annabeth to Rachel and how she's easier to be around. She doesn't like him for, obviously she doesn't call him seaweed brain, and she's like, better for him.
Percy kind of puts Annabeth on blast a little bit for not being good at communicating, which is, I think, kind of turning it around on her, because if we remember in the Demigod Files, right, the interview with her, she's like, oh, he doesn't take hints, and why doesn't he just understand me? But the flip side of that is
when Rachel's really straightforward. And
Annabeth is really bad at just saying what she's thinking. She expects Percy, who by her own admission is really bad at noticing things, to just like understand what she's implying. Well, Rachel's just like, hey, idiot, I like you. Like she just straight up says it. And I kind of like that about her character. I kind of like Rachel better.
Yeah, no, Rachel, this is why I like Rachel a little more. Like we're not going to get more into shipping, but when it comes to it, Rachel's actually kind of better for Percy than Annabeth in this way, because she listens to him. I'm gonna say she's rich, and she invited him to go to the Caribbean.
I mean, like that's a benefit for sure, but I mean, I think.
Well, no, obviously it's a benefit, but being straightforward. I mean, Annabeth, the closest she got was kissing him in the Battle of the Labyrinth, and then it's like,
when did they
kiss him at Mount St. Helen.
Oh. Did they?
Yeah, that's the part where Percy Jackson, like he got shot up in the air and goes to
that
Calypso.
happened. Okay,
Yeah.
and then also there was another kiss between them.
There was at the chariot
after
race
the chariot
in Sea of
race.
Monsters.
Sea of Monsters, yeah. So a couple like romantic things here and there with them. It's just been like a very weird will they won't they, where there's a lot of like
It's gonna happen.
there's implied chemistry between the two of them, but a lot of it is left unsaid, mostly because the characters are just really bad at talking to each other. And I think that maybe that's what makes Rachel such a breath of fresh air, because she does sort of say what she's thinking, and she's like, I don't know, I guess her personality feels so different than a lot of the other characters that are very like, nervous to say what they actually feel.
I think it's funny because you have a character like Rachel, or we're introduced to her in the third book, and then she doesn't become a main character until the fourth book, and she's really out there and really outgoing, especially like when we first meet her in pretty much the first book that we see her in was Battle 11th. She's like, hey, Percy, I know you. And then when they have to find her again, she's doing like this weird art thing. And she's like this weird person, but yet I think the most important thing that I have to say about her is that she's different from Annabeth in so many different ways. She isn't like, what is it, like a manic pixie dream girl at times, where she isn't like that.
You mean that she's more of a well-rounded character?
Yeah, no, she's different. She's different from Annabeth. Like there's some characters like Gale and Peeta where they're pretty much interchangeable.
That's not true.
A little. Oh my God! Sam's shaking his head.
No, my boyfriend's in the corner saying no, that's wrong. I don't think they're interchangeable. Let's not make comparisons to other YA, because I totally don't agree with that.
No, but I'm saying, but you can they can be interchangeable. It's either.
No, I think in some ways you could actually compare Rachel and Annabeth to Gale and Peeta in the sense that they both make sense for Percy because they appeal to him for different reasons. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Annabeth appeals to the demigod side of him. Like they like to go on adventures together. There's a lot of common ground there, but she's bad at communicating. Rachel in some ways makes, I think, Percy feel safer because, I mean, there's like a line where he says, we spent a lot of time together this summer. I hadn't exactly planned it that way, but the more serious things got at camp, the more I found myself needing to call up Rachel and get away, just for some breathing room. I needed to remind myself that the mortal world was still out there, away from all the monsters using me as their personal punching bag. So I think, to some extent, there's an appeal to Rachel because she represents the mortal world still existing and still being important to him, because I think sometimes...
And not every 5 seconds something is exploding.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there is like a lot of tension in Annabeth and Percy's relationship, because whenever they're interacting, a lot of the times there's a monster, there's something going on, there's something really intense happening. Well, Percy and Rachel can kind of just exist as people. They even say just as normal people. They can
go on a car ride and nothing weird is going to happen until Blackjack shows up.
Yeah, until Blackjack shows up. But like, I think that to some extent that's why Percy likes Rachel, because he's like, oh yeah, you're like just a person.
And now we're in the weird type of melodrama where Rick Riordan has now made a love triangle.
Yeah, he made a love triangle. The weird thing is I don't hate either of them, though.
I'm very indifferent.
Yeah, like I think that both of them are really interesting, good characters. I think Rachel's really cool. I think Annabeth she's harder to like sometimes, but that's only because
that's her flaw.
That we've seen more of her too. Like we've seen her from the very beginning, and she has a lot of like weird trauma going on with her parents and with the fact that she's a demigod and with like wanting to prove herself. There's a lot going on. And then obviously her history with Luke. I mean, there's so much happening with her. So that complicates her character. It makes her more interesting, and it also sometimes makes it more difficult to put up with her personality, because she can be a little bit unfair. She can be bad at communicating. She can be an apologist about Luke. Like all of these things are true. And then she can also be, a very headstrong person, a very thoughtful person who cares about Percy. So I get the appeal of both of them, and I think that they're both interesting.
And then you get to like Rachel, who she's more of like a quirky person, but also she's a person that's more down to earth because she comes up with solutions that are funny. Like when she first meets Percy at the Hoover Dam, she kind of like tricks the skeletons, like he went that way. And there's things like she didn't have to do it, but she did it because she wanted to. But also she's a good person, and obviously her weird thing is about her trying to impress her dad, which she brings up again. I was like, I invited you to the Caribbean, but my dad wants me to go to this all-female school, this prep school, this finishing school. It's a lot like Jumanji in that sense.
Yeah, it is a little bit like Jumanji. It's funny. I feel like just the lesson of these freaking books is like,
Be yourself.
No, I was gonna say no matter if you're a demigod or you're immortal, your parents are gonna drive you crazy because like.
Well, I think it depends on like,
mean?
well, Percy's dad is a god, whereas Rachel's dad is more of a person that has a lot of money.
But
and
that's
it's
like
the exact same thing. It's power.
It's power, exactly. They both have powerful parents, so it's the same issue in some ways. And she wants to impress her parents, just like all the demigods want to impress their parents. So it's like it's actually not that different as far as personality is concerned, or like what their lives are like.
It's actually kind of funny because you can have parallels. Like you don't think a god could be like an immortal, but then you have things like this that occur, which is really interesting because you have the idea of, the gods are flawed and all the demigods have issues.
Yeah.
And you have the problem though is that you can translate it both ways. I think that's why people like the Greek gods a lot more than like just say any other, like the Christian god or like any other god, like even like in Hindu religion.
As far as like telling a story. Well,
telling a story because you don't have superpowers. You can
Yeah.
have, it's like Superman, how Superman's boring, but people enjoy Batman because he can get his butt kicked really easily.
Yeah, they have more of a
They have
flaw
flaws.
to the like they're fallible as far as personality is concerned. They make mistakes and that kind of thing. I mean that's obviously the common ground that
And you can
that
tell
Rachel
good
and Percy
morality.
have.
Like every time you think of like a morality thing, it's like, Medusa, you think of like the Achilles and Achilles' heel. You think of a lot of like Greek stories because a lot of those are, people are
they're
superpowered,
like moral
but they have flaws.
lessons. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like I guess like Aesop's fables in a sense. But I like that the beginning of this opens up with them driving and how Rachel even kisses Percy, which is weird.
So she's really forward in asking that, and then before you really get to hear Percy's answer, and he's like dumbfounded by the whole situation, Blackjack swoops out of the sky and,
With Beckendorf?
and lands on
the hood of his Prius.
on Mr. Blofus's Prius, actually, which he like lent his car to
Well, to be
Percy.
fair, a Prius, if you just like tapped on it, just already explodes.
I guess that's true. But I mean, even Percy says, he's like, I know what you're thinking. He's being really, Paul was being really irresponsible for letting me drive this car when I'm 16. I don't have my license. It's like, yeah, it is.
Now, here's another thing that I noticed. Did Percy Jackson and Sally Jackson actually tell Paul?
They did though, right? Because he said,
Obviously they did.
there was a big
to.
jump because he said, I know you're thinking, wow, that was really irresponsible of him, blah, blah, blah. But Paul knows me pretty well. He's seen me slice up demons and leap out of exploding school buildings. So, I mean,
I guess they have to, but we didn't have a short story about that.
Well, no, that's like there's such weird time jumping happening here. Like Paul and his mom got married.
Paul knows about this.
Paul knows about the demigod thing.
Rachel and Percy are almost
Yeah,
dating.
Rachel and Percy have been like together so much throughout the summer that they're so close that they're practically dating. Like, I feel like I've been asleep for 1,000 years and I woke up and so much has happened.
It's like the season premiere. Like there's like some shows that I like. A good example of this is Peaky Blinders from season 1 to season 2. Beginning of season 2, like important character dies because they couldn't get the actor back. So
there's like, oh yeah, he's dead now.
He's dead now. Like, what happened?
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels a little bit, where I'm just like, oh wait, I guess that is happening.
See, wouldn't that have been better to have something like that in the Demigod Files? Like you would have the wedding of Sally Jackson.
Right. Yeah. Like if we're going to have an in-between story, why not explain the in-between stuff that happens? That seems like a weird choice, don't you think?
It seems like almost like an oversight. I'm sure there's probably like, it would be really boring.
Also, weirdly enough, there was the story, one of the stories in the Demigod Files takes place during the summer after the Battle of the Labyrinth, but before the end of the summer. Could they have set that story during this summer? Could they have maybe set some like...
No, because the only one they had was the one from Battle of the Labyrinth, and then they had Winter Break, and then they had the beginning of the school year.
No, there was one that took place during the summer. That
was
the
4th of July. No, that one was for
that was 4th of July. Yeah,
that was Battle of the Labyrinth.
Yeah, that was Battle of the Labyrinth. That's what I'm saying. Would that have maybe benefited from instead changing that to this summer?
Well, we don't know what's going to happen because Percy Jackson hasn't gone to camp yet.
He has gone to camp.
Has
he?
he?
Yeah, he said that he's gone back and forth from camp to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's the weird thing is he's not also full time at camp. Sometimes he's with Rachel.
Well, they're
in the
going on
mortal
missions
world.
because there's the parts where they're talking about how they've had to blow up certain places.
Yeah, it's like it's not
monsters.
quite the same as I think. Do you know what actually this reminds me of a lot is I know I'm not an expert on Harry Potter, so please forgive me. But sort of like how when Ron shows up with the flying car, it's sort of like the idea is you're so used to Harry getting on the Hogwarts Express and getting to Hogwarts that way. Do you know what I mean? And then instead they're like changing it up. Do you know what I mean?
I think they have to because they've already done it.
It's the same idea.
They have to because J.K. Rowling, we already had that whimsical approach in the first book.
So
we have to have another
different
reason.
Thing. So instead, this like sort of disrupts the pattern you're used to because you're so used to like, okay, so he finishes school, he's starting camp now. This is what's happening. He gets a new quest. Well, this is like very in media res. Like we're already in it. We're already stressed about Percy turning 16 really soon. There's a lot happening. There's already a bunch of training that they've been doing. They've come up with plans to intercept this cruise ship. And the reason that they have this plan is because they've been practicing all summer. They've gone to other
yes.
They've gone to other ships
and
like planning exactly how they were going to do it, like figuring out all the logistics. So it's not exactly the same as a lot of the other books.
It's funny because we're so used to like in a visual sense, you would show this off in like a training montage. You would have something that would like set this up, but because we have a book, you have to have it within the text, and that might be a problem. Though with here, I do like the idea of them going back and forth because we've seen Percy Jackson go to camp every book. It's kind of nice to have. Actually, I kind of like Deathly Hallows in that way where Harry and the gang actually have to not go to Hogwarts that year, and they're going off into the real world.
Exactly. There's a lot of examples of that where any story that
follows the formula.
It follows especially a formula where it's like a setting of a formula. So it's like you're going to school, you're going to camp. There's a specific place that you go to every year.
Then you have like the breakout episode where you have to like leave the environment.
Exactly. It changes the formula a little bit. So I think that that's kind of what this serves as. It's interesting that it mostly stayed consistent up until this last book, where now it's like totally different.
Well, you have to do it because they even did that with like Series of Unfortunate Events. You were so used to it, and then book 7 rolled around, and you got to the hospital.
And then it like disrupts the pattern of Mr. Poe taking. Yeah, I do think even though that's not a consistent setting, it's a consistent premise. Yeah.
Well, it's a consistent, almost like a trope of like not trope, but I guess formula of. The kids have to go to their new guardian. Yeah. Count Olaf shows up, and they have to foil him, and he runs away.
Even though that the settings are different, the idea is the same. It's like,
a guardian will always die.
A guardian's place. It might not be the same exactly, but it's like the same kind of idea. But they're changing it here, where he's like, it's kind of interesting too to think that like maybe as he's getting older, his experience of camp is less like straightforward, where he's not there all the time, where he's sort of he's living. He's like living in both worlds. He's living in the mortal world. He's living in the Half-Blood world.
Well, also it has to be with the camp is a place to train and make sure to prepare people to go back into the real world. Whereas Percy Jackson, he's a really good fighter in things where he doesn't necessarily have to have that protection anymore. Like there's the part where he fights all the seal people, and he's like taking out a bunch of them.
No, he's just slicing them. Like they're like nothing to him. Like if you were playing like a video game, they're just like
hack and slash.
Yeah, they're like one of the intro.
They're like level
villains.
1 bosses.
Exactly, level 1. Like he's just like slashing through them. I guess we should get to the cruise ship plan then.
Yes. So what happens is Charlie Beckendorf comes in and is like, it's time for the plan they've been working on. We're gonna blow up the Princess Andromeda, and Percy Jackson and Beckendorf fly off. Percy's a little sad because he doesn't get to say goodbye to Rachel, but she understands and she has to drive her broken Prius.
She impulsively kisses him before he leaves, and he's like, huh, what? Because he's an idiot. And
I would have been like, well, Beckendorf, hold on for a second, buddy.
And then Beckendorf is just like chuckling, like, all right, let's go.
Because he already has a date. He's got Selena.
Selena Beauregard, yeah.
So they fly off. They're cruising on their Pegasus like a G6.
So what's interesting about this is I feel like we don't normally see Percy in such a like calculated way. Like he has such a specific plan.
Which I think that has to go with like he has ADHD, so you never see him this organized.
No, you normally see him flying by the seat of his pants, being like, I guess I'm gonna do this to solve this problem. And usually the problems present themselves all of a sudden. It's a monster appearing out of nowhere, and now he has to figure out how to fix this. Well, in this scenario, they're planning ahead of time. They know where the Princess Andromeda is. They have this whole plan of like setting the explosives in the engine room and like be in and out so they don't even see them, and then detonating the bomb
offshore
with far away, because Percy will use his water powers and shoot them far away so they don't get hurt. And that is the best laid plan, but you know.
Well, every best laid plan goes wrong. Like you can't have some like Ocean's 11. Their best laid plan disrupt, and they have to come up with an improvised plan.
It feels almost like a heist a little bit, or it's not quite, but it's like the same idea of like they have
No, it reminds me of the movie
organized.
the one with Alec Guinness. Oh, like on the bridge Kwai. Where the whole point of the movie is they have to blow up a bridge. And it's like that. It's like, okay, we have this plan of blowing up this bridge to disrupt the enemies. Oh no, things are going wrong. It's a lot like the Great Escape as well, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, it's like you have a specific
plan,
but your plan never accounts for the wild card of what other people are going to do, sort of. So you just have
every
to
perfect
adjust.
plan you have can be screwed up. It's like D&D, like as a DM, sometimes like, I'll make this really cool puzzle, and all of a sudden the player's like, yeah, we're gonna go the opposite way. Oh, I think I see a back door.
Yeah, exactly. So you can try to think of a specific way in the ideal world how you would solve a problem, but if anything deviates from what you expect, then you can't fix it. And I think that that's the case.
What they say in theater is the show will always go wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with this. It goes real wrong. Like probably about as wrong as it could go, I guess.
Well, it goes right in the beginning. They get to this ship, everything's fine. They deal with a couple of the enemies, and then starts to go wrong very, very quickly. But that's because they were set up from the very beginning, so it couldn't have gone wrong.
They knew that they were there from the beginning. They kind of expected them to show up, so it was a trap.
It's a trap!
It just sort of starts to go downhill because then Percy realizes, oh, well, we can't do this as a stealth mission anymore. Then he starts trying to like distract
weapons free.
He tries to distract all the enemies away from Beckendorf, so maybe he has some time.
Because he needs 10 minutes.
He needs 10. That's also what makes this feel a lot like a sort of heist movie, is like the sort of 10 minutes on the clock. Like you get countdown, 10 minutes. We have this amount of time. I need to get this done. You need to distract them.
I hate to use this example, but it reminds me of the movie Rogue One. Well, they have like a very short window of time before, I think, the systems reboot.
Or whatever.
They have like 2 minutes or whatever you need.
That's a trope that's in 1,000 different things. But like any kind of like where you have a very specific
When the second
plan,
you see like a loading bar,
Yeah.
you know you're going to be in that loading bar for way too long.
Like a stealth mission or whatever that requires requisite whatever amount of time. In this case, it's 10 minutes. It's kind of weird.
We don't have 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's
then
also
make me 10 minutes.
I find it kind of weird when you get a time limit in a book because it's very hard for you to judge time when you're reading. Like I find like that doesn't really. I'm like, how much time has passed? I have no idea.
Well, here's the problem though. That also doesn't work in like a visual setting because
unless you're cutting back and forth to the clock.
In movies, unless like if there's like a thing that's like on the bottom of the screen, like 24 or something. They always fudge those. Like, there's a lot of movies where like the bomb's supposed to go off in 24 seconds,
and then
the scene keeps going.
It keeps going, and then it cuts
only
back
like
in a
6
minute.
seconds have gone by.
Exactly.
Like, man, this bomb would have blown up like hours ago.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense either. But yeah, that's what's really funny about this is like it's text, so I have no idea how much time has passed. But regardless, Percy's like, oh, I guess we can't do this as a stealth mission.
Well, when I think of like, so in D&D, an average fight scene might last 12 seconds, but you could be doing it for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, so whatever amount of time that he needs to buy. Of course, Percy, in some ways, I feel like he's relishing this because this is something
he gets a lot loose.
This is more his speed, you know what I mean? To go crazy and to distract people and to be slashing with his sword, like doing stealth stuff. That's never been his strong suit.
No, he's the person that says, "Don't make a sudden accident," starts knocking down.
No,
pots.
yeah, Annabeth is the more of a stealth person.
She has the
invisible hat, and she like has battle strategy like that.
She has a knife.
Can I just say, why didn't they ask Annabeth to help?
Well, because Luke would have been there and she would have compromised the mission.
Oh God, you're right, because she's insufferable sometimes.
You can't compromise the mission in this way. You have to have two people
that are
indifferent.
If only we had the talents of Annabeth without the weird apologetics of Luke.
Well, why can't like Dionysus or someone just make her forget some things?
Yeah, you don't even know who he is, kid.
Yeah, not have this alcohol. We're gonna
that would have been a solution like books ago if he just like sort of eternal sunshined her from ever knowing about him.
Here, I got rid of your tumor, your Luke tumor.
Yeah. Who's Luke? He's just some guy you went to. It's fine. Forget about it.
I like how he now has like a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, that's my headcanon of Dionysus.
But so what ends up happening, of course, is that surprise, surprise, Kronos Luke is there. And I like how creepy he is now. He has like golden eyes.
Oh, he's horrifying.
Just imagine this in a live action setting. This is gonna scare kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like your optimism. You're like, this is happening for sure, live action.
No, I said if this is gonna happen, this is gonna scare kids.
Yeah. No, I mean that's like I always found Luke just disturbing anyway because he has that sort of like creepy, like
surfer dude aesthetic, or I guess more preppy now.
well, yeah, like a prep. But in general, he has like that creepy, almost Aryan look to him, where he's like,
oh yeah,
which is also, it's very fitting too, because his personality is a little bit like Hitler Youth, where he's like been like indoctrinated into like this weird ideology, and he's like following this guy, and then to like combine the characters where he's like the creepy,
oh yeah, now I am
peon,
Hitler too.
and then Kronos is like this unstoppable, like evil magical lord, and to make them into one character is really horrifying.
Well, it's horrifying, but also I think I like it, but also it's kind of lazy, because you have that problem now of like, okay, you just have to defeat one person to defeat both. Yeah, which I guess it's supposed to consolidate.
I'm glad they did that though. Yeah, exactly. The consolidation is actually helpful to me, because having two villains sometimes felt a little bit too complicated, like different levels of villains that you have to defeat and all that.
Well, now you know so. the thing's going to be like, it has to be like Luke has to defeat Kronos, because it's like, you have to fight him. We love you. It's like they're going to have like a hug circle.
I'm imagining them like defeating Kronos, and then Luke survives, and then he apologizes, and then I'm going to roll my eyes for 1,000 years and want him to fall off a cliff again.
And then he does. He falls off Mount Olympus.
I just don't care about him. He's bad. He's so bad. I don't know.
I like that they have him, that he isn't as creepy as he was in the last book. He's more, obviously, he's formed more, and now he has a sweet scythe that if it cuts you, not that your soul gets taken out of your body, which it should do, it just starts draining you of your entire essence.
It severs your soul, so it starts to like leak out of your body. Kind of like Dementors, actually. This feels again.
Well, this sounds like a couple ex-girlfriends that I had too.
You dated Kronos' scythe.
I might have dated a Dementor too. They sucked
so
all the happiness right out of me.
We see Spooky Luke, also known as Lukey, and the Princess Andromeda is pretty much the same, only it's gotten even grosser.
No, it's gotten more emptier.
It's gotten emptier because all the weird fake tourists that they had to kind of convince people into thinking it's a real cruise ship, they're not even keeping up with that premise anymore. Who knows where the tourists are? But
have you tried the new Soylent Green buffet?
In the words of Percy, he says, hold on. Now, I didn't see any sign of tourists. I hated to think what had happened to them, but I kind of doubted they'd been allowed to go home with their bingo winnings. So
no, what happens on the Princess Andromeda stays in the belly of a monster.
Yeah. No, they're dead.
They're DEED. They're dead.
Yeah. No, it's bad. They're gone. And
but guess what happens, B? Is that Lucas starts laughing because Percy Jackson and them fight, but Kronos is like, well, we knew all about this plan, and then they bring out Beckendorf, and he's been beaten to a bloody pulp. But the surprise, he actually was able to put all the explosives.
Their toadies aren't so bright, especially Ethan, because
you would think if they have like the thing of like all the explosives, you guys are here to blow up a ship. No, I guess they had like the mason jars or whatever it was.
Well, yeah, so it was like a sort of like red herring where they thought that his bag was still full of explosives.
It should have been a bunch of red herrings.
He just filled it with, right, but instead he just filled his bag with a bunch of cans of peaches or something.
Yeah, cans of peaches.
And then the actual explosives are still in the engine room, and then like...
I'm not a genius, B, but I would imagine... I would check.
No, I know, like that's like the first thing you do. Like,
no, not even check that. Imagine when you capture somebody, you look in the bag.
You look in the bag to see, I know. Listen... This could be a plot hole, but I think they're just really trying to establish just how bad the help is. Really hard to get good help around here.
Unless they're like, hey, boss, we found this guy with a bunch of peaches. I don't know why he was going to the kitchen.
Yeah, so I guess the premise is that Ethan and everyone else who's helping Luke / Kronos are real dumb. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
Well, obviously, Nethan. Because Ethan, I guess that's his new name, Nethan. Nethan Nakamura is pretty much, he doesn't have any depth perception, so he couldn't even look into the bag. He had to do a full tilt.
No. I think he's just oblivious.
He's just oblivious. Yeah, well, especially the Sword of Hades, he's oblivious. But the most important thing is Beckendorf has the dead man's trigger on his hand now.
Yeah, so he has like his watch which can
blow it up.
Yeah, it can blow everything up. And then so there's like this weird silent conversation between Percy.
They just look at each other.
And
they know.
And the captured Beckendorf where he's like, how long? And he's like 0, which means there's no delay in time from when he detonates and to when the explosives go off. So if he detonates it, everyone's gonna die, including them because they're on.
And of course, what happens is the hero sacrifice, where it's easy. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. where Beckendorf blows himself up as Percy just has enough time to literally jump off the boat and hopefully doesn't get horribly burned.
Yeah, flashback to Tyson. Once again, someone heroically sacrifices themselves on a boat, and Percy, using his magical water powers, shoots away in time.
Yeah, he uses his dolphin powers to
Yeah, he goes,
really yeet out
and
of
then
there.
He shoots out, and he escapes, and I guess
it's kinda
Beckendorf
crazy.
dies?
Yes, Beckendorf dies. And it's kind of crazy, B, because this is the first time you've had like this weird type of murder-suicide in
Yeah.
these books where it's obviously it's a sacrifice, but also he knew it was a one-way
No,
ticket.
he detonated it is the thing. The difference with the example of
It's self-sacrifice.
yeah, well, the difference with the Tyson thing, which is it's very similar in some ways, but Tyson didn't initiate the explosion. He just more was like,
He wanted
I'll
to save everybody.
He went in to save everybody to like turn off the like explosives
he
from happening.
wanted to make sure that it wouldn't explode before everyone could get
Yeah,
off.
exactly. So that's a little bit different. Well, Ethan literally, or sorry, not Ethan. Wow, that would. have
Well,
been a
Ethan
weird
got
way-
vaporized.
Yeah, Ethan got vaporized. Beckendorf presses the button. He's like, "I'm gonna do it," and then and he does. He's like, he basically does
Seppuku.
Yeah, exactly. More. It's closer to kamikaze in a way.
I
Like,
guess,
he's just-
yeah.
Yeah, he just sort of like just.
Well, no, he
explodes
does it
himself.
with honor because he knows what's gonna.
Yeah, and
You
then
okay,
and
this is gonna
it's
sound
to
really.
kill someone else, though. You know what I mean?
This is gonna sound really dumb, but it reminds me of the movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis, where he does the exact same thing.
Does he blow himself up?
Yes, because the meteor's coming to Earth, and they don't have enough room for everyone to get onto the shuttle.
Okay.
So he stays back and has the trigger in his hand.
So he could explode the meteor.
Yeah, so he can explode the meteor when they need to. Because I think it's not set to automatic. Someone actually has to stay behind. It's been years, but I just remember the dumb scene where he's.
I'm sure there are plenty of
Well, there's the-
sacrificial explosions in movies.
Well, you have to do that because even in Solo, a Star Wars story, they do it and it's really dumb. But it's I guess the ultimate hero sacrifice of, I guess, was it trial by fire almost, or your ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
You're just trying to make puns here. I think, yeah, it's pretty.
Well, what's left of Beckendorf is only what can be remains in a soup can now. I guess those peaches,
the
those cans
peaches.
were those little casket now.
Oh yeah, they're just gonna find the peaches like in holes, and they'll be like a remembrance
Sploosh.
of the dried up lake, but instead it'll be the dried up ocean when we all destroy the planet. And they'll be like, Beckendorf was here. He fought bravely.
And we got all these cans of sploosh now.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can cure athletes.
Now, how do you feel about this of like kids dying now in these books? Do you think it's something that is almost like a cheap shot?
They've established it though more so. Like Bianca died officially. It's complicated because she can kind of communicate with Nico because of some underworld.
She's also a daughter
stuff.
of Hades.
She's a daughter of Hades. It's a little bit different, but people have died in the past. There were some deaths last book at the end of Battle of the Labyrinth, when at the end of the titular battle, there are a couple of casualties. They make a big deal about how
Yeah, but this
upsetting
is
it is.
different. I
Yeah,
feel
he's
like.
more of a main character.
Because you see
Yeah.
them die off screen. You see them off page, those characters in Battle Labyrinth.
Well, you see them get injured, I guess, but
You see them get injured, but you don't see them blow themselves up.
Right, no, this is more visceral, I would say. And also Beckendorf is more of a important character, I guess. Like, you actually know him.
I would say this is probably the first official casualty of the war. You have like I guess you had the Battle of Labyrinth, but this is.
Yeah, who cares about Dionysus's kid and that other guy, whatever his name was?
Oh yeah, Lee Fletcher.
Yeah, Lee Fletcher.
You know what's this is gonna sound like? B, you're looking at me right now. Like, what are you talking about? It's like the death of Hedwig in Harry Potter.
Like,
this is the loss of innocence.
Because he's so innocent. Yeah, I think.
Because
well,
here's
especially,
the wait. B,
Okay,
do you
I'm
remember
agreeing with you.
B, do you remember the short story about Beckendorf?
Yeah.
He had a girlfriend. He was just about to go to NYU, and he was 18.
Yeah, no, I think especially the way that they gave him so much more backstory than some of the other characters we've seen die. So I think that raises the stakes a little bit and makes it a little bit more emotionally impactful. Also, he so willingly sacrificed himself, so that's like even sadder. If for some reason that if he just like had been stabbed or whatever in battle.
No, that's what would have probably been what had happened, but they don't do that. Like his soul gets severed from his body by Kronos.
Yeah, it's sadder in a way. I don't know.
I like that Rick Riordan's taking these steps because especially in like YA and stuff where you have kids blowing themselves up, that seems like something that publisher would be like, please stay away from that, please.
The way that it's described too is so heartbreaking because it doesn't even say Beckendorf died, or it's not as straightforward. It's more here. Let me just like read the ending to it. It says, Even from that distance, the explosion shook the world. Heat seared the back of my head. The Princess Andromeda blew up from both sides, a massive fireball of green flame rolling into the dark sky, consuming everything. Beckendorf, I thought. Then I blacked out and sank like an anchor toward the bottom of the sea. And
Obviously,
that's
the one person
chapter.
that's going to survive is Luke Kronos because he's a
Yeah,
god.
exactly. Also, this is the last book. This is the last chapter. We have a lot to go. He's the main villain. I don't think he died. It would make no sense at all if Kronos could just be killed by some Greek fire. He's obviously too powerful for that. But in the meantime, we have a pretty important character who dies in a very tragic, horrible way.
Now, do you think this is going to affect Percy in the later chapters? Or do you think
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's eventually going to weigh on him as he realizes that the stakes are getting higher and people are actually dying, people who he knows, people are making decisions that, they decide, oh, I need to risk my life in this way in order to save someone or in order
that's
to
the
prevent
hero's
this from
journey, the
happening.
the heroic sacrifice. And obviously, there's always the idea of the hero coming back or piercing the veil. If you go through like the hero's journey with Joseph Campbell, but also, would have this been a lot harder on Percy? Because I don't think he might have survivor's guilt on this, but if it was like he had to make a choice between blowing it up and saving Beckendorf, that might have been a different outcome.
Right, yeah, but it wasn't Percy's decision to make.
No,
it was obviously
Beckendorf made that decision.
Yeah, so it's not like he killed him in any way. It's just Beckendorf decided that was the best decision to make.
Well,
it's
they
just
had
sad.
to. They had to because it was coming to New York. That was going to be the first official invasion. And they blew up the Princess Andromeda, a really smelly cruise ship that probably was overpriced.
And they probably, they killed a good amount of the monsters they would have had to face. So that definitely benefited them to some extent, but it is incredibly sad.
I'm kind of sad. Maybe Beckendorf, well, no, we won't see him ever again because he's going to be blown to bits unless they go to the underworld.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's entirely possible, for us to see something like his ghost or
Cyborg
something
Beckendorf.
like that. Yeah, I don't know. There's always weird stuff that can happen, but as far as like Beckendorf as we knew him, flesh and blood, being back at camp the exact way he was, that's never
he's
gonna
dead.
happen.
He's D-E-E-D.
Yeah.
So B, what is the name of the next chapter?
I meet some fishy relatives.
Ooh,
so
this is fishy.
That makes sense because last line of the last chapter that we read, Percy floats to the bottom of the ocean after enduring an explosion. So I guess he meets some people who knows Poseidon in some way.
Maybe he might meet Rainbow.
Yeah, maybe Rainbow will come back. Maybe I don't know, is he going to go to
Poseidon? He's going to go to Atlantis?
Poseidon's castle. Yeah, like is that going to happen? I don't know. Or is he just going to meet like some fish people who kind of know him? I don't know.
What, they're going to float up? Hey, we found this cool skeleton. It's this Beckendorf skeleton.
Oh no. That's horrible. I've got who's its and what's it's galore, and it's just like his head and his femur.
Oh no, see, that's how Ariel gets her legs.
Oh my god. I built these legs myself. This is getting very dark. We need to not. We just need to not.
Could you please not? This is what happens, B, when we went to the Sheep and Wool Festival, saw a bunch of sheep, I petted a bunch, and then we got some delicious food.
Yeah, and then you found a weird beer downstairs basement.
Oh, no, not beer. I had adult ambrosia.
Ambrosia, yeah. Euphemism.
Don't drink and drive, and don't drink while flying a Pegasus.
Yeah, that's very important not to do. Yeah, it was such a freaking weird dark chapter. I can't even.
Now, do you think this is going to set the tone for the rest of the book?
Probably, yeah. I would say so. I think the stakes have been raised a lot. They raised the stakes. They changed the timetable a little bit.
They changed the rules?
Yeah, like we know that people can die in immediate and permanent ways. We know that things are escalating and moving very quickly. Our timetable is we have exactly a week until Percy turns 16, in which case a horrible prophecy can be fulfilled if depending on his own decision of how to save the world or not. There's a lot of stakes going on. So I do think that if this is the way that the first chapter feels, which is like it starts
the way
at a
the
fever.
world ends.
Yeah,
it's the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper.
No, but it ends with a bang, I think. I think this starts at a fever pitch and it's going to stay at a fever pitch. I think that the tone of this book is going to be, this is the last book. All of these major things are coming together. We're going to be fighting Kronos, Luke. We're going to be saving the world or ending the world. There's like a giant prophecy to fulfill or not fulfill. Like, it's obvious that the stakes are going to be higher in this book because this is the last of this series. So
Now, I have one more question for you, B.
yeah.
And this book is called The Last Olympian. What is that supposed to mean? Because every one of the books actually has one of those things where Battle Labyrinth, it's self-explanatory. Titan's Curse, that's self-explanatory. You have Sea of Monsters, self-explanatory. The Lightning Thief, self-explanatory. So what is The Last Olympian? Do you think it's going to be something big, or do you think it's going to be something that's almost like just like a name drop?
I don't know. I mean, so Olympian would mean that you're from Olympus, which would imply a god. So it's like implying the last surviving Olympian, the last surviving god, something like that. So I don't know if it's saying that Percy is going to be the last Olympian and he's going to have to salvage the gods in the end or something, or I don't exactly know what the implication of Olympian means.
So what I can say about this is that when it comes to the pantheon of gods, there's gods for everything. The Greeks pretty much made OCs for everything. They have gods that, for like the sunlights, and I guess that's Helios. They have a story for everything. Well, what happens when you eventually run out of things?
Yeah.
Well, there was two people that did it. It was
there's two.
Apollo.
Yeah.
It was someone else, and then it was Apollo. But after a while, the Greek gods, or I guess the Romans and the Greeks and whoever, because the Romans also did the exact same thing.
They're practically the same gods.
Well, they're practically the same people. Eventually, they have to run out of things that they can explain for gods. Maybe this is the last thing they came up with.
The last Olympian. I'm trying to... Yeah, I mean, it sounds like sort of the, like
the most powerful Olympian is the last one ever created.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Because I was thinking more like the last Olympian left in a way, where it's like if Kronos tries to succeed and gets rid of all of the gods, then who is left or something like that. Or
it's like Pandora's box, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's left?
Hope. Yeah. So are you? Yeah, maybe in some ways, in destroying the gods, there might be like a new beginning, and they might come back in a different.
Like a Genesis.
Who knows what could happen? This is the last book, and there's like so much.
So what you're telling me, B, is that all the gods are gonna combine together like a gigantic combiner robot?
Like a mech.
Like Super Zeus.
Yeah, Super Zeus. I'm even stronger now. No, I don't know. I have no idea what the last Olympian could mean exactly, because there's like a lot of weird implications to that. But I guess we'll find out.
I am excited to go through this because this is a book that starts big, ends big, and everything are middle, beginning, end, whatever you want to call it. I'm a little tongue-tied right now, is big.
Yeah, no, everything, I can just tell that this book is going to be, there's going to be less downtime, less chill, fun camp activities. This isn't like the whimsical first book where you get to, look
like
at all
Harry
the strawberry
Potter,
fields.
unfortunately.
No, it is. Like, I really didn't want to mention Harry Potter again, but it's true.
But
it's
you
like,
have to.
The first book, it's like, let's introduce you to this magical camp / school. It's the same thing, whatever. This magical place, and look at all this,
and
the
then it
whimsy,
starts to get
and all
darker
the
where it's
animals.
like, my friends are dying left and right. There's weird things.
Yeah, exactly.
Love
It's the
triangles.
same kind of thing where the stakes are being raised, they're getting older, their interests are changing.
It's when a kid becomes an adult.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe I'm getting from this book. So I'm expecting it to only get more intense as the chapters go on.
Percy Jackson has to cut off his own arm. Like things like that.
27 hours later or whatever.
Yeah, that's gonna be happening. B, do you want to read some emails?
Yeah, sure.
So we did get one email, and this one is from Liam. Hey, Zach and B, I really do enjoy your podcast. I've been listening to it for a very long time. It's something I listen to during work. I have one question for you guys. Who is your least favorite god? Ooh, this is going to be hard because we might get turned to like platypuses or something if we talk about this.
I mean, I guess there's some minor gods. Like, I mean, Dionysus is a real jerk, but I kind of, as a character, I think he's very funny and interesting. So I don't necessarily think he's my least favorite as far as the actual story is concerned, but if I were to meet him, I maybe wouldn't be too thrilled. Hermes did a pretty bad job of taking care of Luke. He's in some ways indirectly responsible for this garbage boy wreaking havoc on the planet, so there's that.
You'd probably be like, boys will be boys.
Yeah, I feel like Hermes has a bit of a hands-off parenting approach that didn't really work out so well. I don't know if he's my least favorite. It's hard to say. Let me see. I mean, Ares, too. Ares is pretty horrible. I think probably Ares. He's just really terrible, and I like the idea of being the god of war. Like, he's just aggressive and in it for himself, and he loves the idea of war, and I just like, I don't think that he is good in any way. He's not very redeemable, I guess. Unlike Clarice, who's much more complicated. Which, I mean, I guess that also makes me dislike him so much, is because so much of like the way that he acts makes Clarice so insecure, and that makes me sad because, you know, she's like an innocent kid.
Ooh, for me, I think it's a little easier because I've read these books more. Straight up, it's Hera. Hera's the absolute worst.
Hera.
She's pretty bad. Hera's the one that she controlled everything from Battle of the Labyrinth. And
she's pretty bad too.
She's pretty bad because she's the one that basically set them all up, as well as when it comes to, like, she hates Annabeth, Annabeth hates her, and also she's kind of the worst because we meet Hephaestus and she didn't like Hephaestus. She yeeted him off Mount Olympus basically because he was ugly.
Yeah, no, she's pretty bad. You know what? I actually might change my answer to that. Oh, man. Here's the thing is, I hate most of the gods. They're pretty bad. I don't like Dionysus all that much, even though
I like Dionysus.
He's funny, but he's a bad person.
Well, he's like hangry, and also he's not
hangry. He's going through withdrawal. Is what you're.
Well, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
He's jangry. He's drunk, angry.
Yeah,
he's got the shakes.
He's not drunk though. He's just No, it means I was drunk yesterday. Like, that's yeah. A lot of gods aren't good. Most of them aren't good. Even Poseidon, who's like.
He's more of a deadbeat.
Yeah, he's a deadbeat, and even he's like the nicest one. So that says a lot.
I like Apollo.
Well, no, I like Apollo. Apollo's very good too. But even Apollo's like a dummy.
And Artemis
I don't know.
is kind of a jerk too.
No, exactly. There's the real question is, which god do I like? And the answer is not really any of them.
Oh man, that's like putting them all on blast. That's the only email that we got. Thank you so much for that lovely email.
Thanks.
B, did we get any iTunes reviews this week?
So we got one iTunes review from Libby Grace, who says, favorite podcast.
Yes!
Hi, Zach and B. I just wanted to say, as a fellow demigod, I love your podcast and it's my favorite. Always keep staying mortal. Libby, a.k.a. Talia Grace.
Oh my god, we actually got it from Talia Grace? Oh my gosh. I'm surprised she's in like, I love you guys more than I love Fall Out Boy.
Or being a tree.
I listen to it on my walks as being a tree, as well as being a tree.
Yeah, thank you for that lovely
that's
iTunes
amazing.
review.
I like when we get fun little emails like this, and as well as fun little iTunes reviews.
Just nice and quick reviews that are positive. Thank you.
I'm so excited. I can't believe we're in the end game now.
Yeah, this is the last book. What are we going to do? Well, I know what we're going to do. We're going to read
Heroes of Olympus.
Heroes of Olympus, or else we're going to be shot against a wall by the people who listen to the show.
They'll find us.
They'll hunt us down. Oh no, but you let them know our location by talking about us seeing the Lightning Thief musical.
Well, no, they know one of our locations. Obviously, I live in the underworld because I live in California.
Right, yes. And
they'll just have to find DOA records.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's probably what we can do after that. But yeah, I can't believe we're on the last book already. It simultaneously feels like it's been forever, and also like it's just started this podcast. It's weird.
It feels weird because is this your longest time doing a podcast?
Yes and no. I mean, technically, I'm still doing Unfortunate Associates, so that's longer.
But it's still like the same amount.
Yeah, it's the same amount of. I would have to look at the number of episodes and things.
We've had more episodes, I think.
Yeah, we've had more episodes. Also, it's weird because I always think of this as my new podcast,
but it's old.
Now it's like 2 years. So it's funny. I'm like, oh yeah, I have this new podcast about Percy Jackson. It's like, no, I don't. I have a 2-year-old podcast about Percy Jackson.
I think it's crazy because we're sitting in the same room right now, something that we very rarely do. And this entire week we've been doing a lot of Percy Jackson stuff. I think this is the first week that I feel like Rick Riordan.
Yeah, I've been so immersed, and I literally have a Lightning Thief musical song stuck in my head at this moment.
What song?
The Tree on the Hill.
Okay, yeah. Tree on the Hill. I have Drive stuck in my head.
Yeah, all you needed to say was tree, and then my brain was like, the tree on the hill, and it's like, it's in there. Yeah, we've been very immersed in
You know what we need to do tomorrow?
Camp Half-Blood stuff.
That's it. We're going to Long Island. We're gonna have to find Camp Half-Blood.
We have to find it. Chiron, are you there? And it's just like
Dad?
freezing rain. Yeah.
You find, and it's like, wow, this is not impressive at all.
No, it's just like an empty field in Long Island.
Yeah, and then we just meet Dionysus. I guess I'll go drinking with him.
Or Long Island, as people would say, who are from Long Island.
But it's been so exciting. We have amazing episodes. Actually, by the time this is out, we talked about the Lightning Thief musical. We enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have
a couple other episodes coming out. we're pretty much Percy Jacksoned out for the week. We sound exhausted because we are.
Yeah, by the time you're listening to this, I'm sure all like those interviews that we did in the city are up. I know we've talked to so many people. We talked to Stephen Brackett. We talked to Sarah Beth Pfeiffer. We briefly talked backstage to
Robert
Kicki, which was amazing. We talked to the folks at Camp Half-Blood Brooklyn again, and got an update on the stuff that they're doing. So
I
you guys
found the Empire State Building and got confused again with the Chrysler Building.
You pointed to the Chrysler Building and said, "Look, the Empire State Building 2 days in a row." But it's fine. You'd never be able to find Olympus. But regardless,
maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, we've just been really immersed in all that stuff, but I hope you guys like all the content that's coming out.
The fruits of our labors are hopefully going to come to yield.
Yeah. Oh my God. We met like the Robert from the meme page and the guys from Helping the Half-Bloods. It's been like such a crazy, amazing week.
It was so crazy. I got my Ghostbusters on. We went to the New York Public Library. Then I went to Dana Barrett's apartment right next. I didn't even realize it was right next to that statue.
Yeah.
I was freaking out. I had a great time in New York. Now I think I'm going to pass out and I'm leaving pretty much after this recording.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go sleep for 1,000 years. Wake me up when Super Britain comes out. No, don't wake me up when September ends.
Yeah, you'd
wake
be
me
here
up
for
when
a whole
Percy
year.
Jackson's over.
When the concept of Percy Jackson is over. Yeah, we've been so immersed in Percy Jackson. I think I'm so immersed in Percy Jackson, but then I meet people who've like seen the musical like 7 times, and I'm like, oh no, never mind. I'm not nearly as much of a super fan as I think.
Well, then
I am.
there's like things like me, like I'll reread the books and stuff, and people like live into the world a little differently than us because we like reading the books and talking about them, whereas people just want to like low key jump into the books and just live there indefinitely. Which is not a bad thing.
I mean, not a bad thing. Not something I'd want to do. We've established there's maybe a reason why our catchphrases keep staying mortal because we don't want to live with the demigods. I think.
The gods are real, and they have kids, and those kids have issues.
Yeah, and I have enough issues. I don't need to also be magic. Thanks.
Oh, one of the signs of being a demigod is anxiety. Why?
Oh no.
Oh
Wait
man,
a
I am
second.
so excited for this. We are going to have a great time, a lot of great episodes. We'll be done hopefully in March, and we have a lot of things hopefully planned. We have a lot of things we're going to work on. I am so excited for this. Thank you so much, B, for all this amazing journey of letting me into your house, onto your beautiful lake.
The whimsical decorated.
It looks like a
Halloween
Pier
house.
1 up in here. It's pretty
Yeah,
bad.
no, there's so many lights. It's really absurd.
I know. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm sure a monster would just be like, oh God, even they're overdoing it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. Yeah, it's amazing that you visited again. I feel like you only see my house in October, so
Well,
I
I planned that specifically.
you have like the context of seeing my Halloween decorated
I'm
house.
afraid
so-
of like walking in during Christmas time and like I get transported to like a Rankin Bass cartoon. Wow, I'm stop animation now.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, magical claymation snowflake would float into your face, and then you'd be like, "What's this? What's this?"
Well, no, it would like pierce my eye because it's claymation. Ah, my eye. And then would have to go to like the ER.
Yeah, probably.
Well, don't worry. I just meet your sister who is just a dentist elf.
Yeah,
I can't fix them. I'm a dentist.
I don't know anything about eyes. Oh man, we're really getting off topic.
Oh,
Anyway.
man. Well, guys, where can they find you, B?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. And if you want to email the show and send us any more amazing messages, you can email us at radiocamphalfblood@gmail.com. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/radiocamphalfblood. Donating, you'll get episodes early. We'll have some fun things coming up early. That's going to be super exciting. We have t-shirts available at TeePublic, so go to www.tpublic/radiocamphalfblood.com and you'll be able to get some amazing things. Well, guys, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal.
Bye, guys.
See ya.